It is my honor and great a joy to have you, Colleena, as my first guest on the Shakti Shrine. Meeting you 10 years ago and studying under you till this day have been highly influential in both Odissi dance and Indian classical arts, in how I attune and behold these precious gems. So welcome.
Thank you.
So the Shakti Shrine is a sacred space to explore the phenomena of Shakti and bring forth the feminine view of the spiritual path. And before we dive in, I would love for you to share with us what Indian classical dance is, what Odissi specifically is within the Indian classical repertoire.
So Odissi is one of, we can say, 9 classical dance forms of India. And Odissi comes from the eastern Indian state of Orissa. And Odissi is unique in that it relates to a temple dance tradition, specifically the temple dance tradition of the Jagannath temple in Puri. And it was Maharis, or women who were dedicated to the temple, who were dancing in service of Lord Jagannath. And they were offering dance and music as an expression of devotion. So it's a very interesting and complex history that I won't get into, but it's a history that is highlighted in the reconstruction of Odissi. So after independence, many regional dance forms of India went through a process of classicalization, and Odissi was basically reconstructed. It was in, at the time of independence, it was not considered a classical dance form, because classical, in essence, is an English word. So it's a kind of foreign concept which is applied to a very traditional dance practice, but it went through a reconstruction phase, as many different dances did in across India, such as Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Kuchipudi. So when Odissi was reconstructed by what we refer to as our founding gurus, who were our gurus, the head of our lineages, from around the 1950s, they had specifically decided to reconstruct this dance that was done in the Jagannath temple. And keeping with the dance movements, they wanted to keep the ritual, some ritual aspects of a dance that would be performed in front of Jagannath. So bhakti, or devotion, is a highlight of the dance form. Through many movements that we do, we express devotion. Through practices we have in the classroom, we invite bhakti, we invite devotion into the training process, or into even the relationship that we build as dancers with our practice, with our dance form. And you can also see the themes of our dances. So we have abhinaya, or storytelling dance, more expressive dances, which we perform in Odissi, which are based on bhakti poetry, devotional poetry, or perhaps Sanskrit verses, which are in praise of gods or goddesses. So in many aspects, this dance invokes the bhakti, the devotion that a Mahari would have had for her beloved Lord Jagannath. So the dance invokes that devotion of temple worship, but it is a dance performed on the stage. And this is kind of where the understanding can be quite complex, because we are performing an intimate act of devotion, essentially. And the practitioners of Odissi today, of course, range, a great deal in their personal relationship to the dance. So many dancers feel it is a spiritual practice. It is a very much an expression of their religious sentiment. And then there's some dancers who feel it is just an expression of the complexity, the refinement, the nuance of classical Indian art, because Odissi is set to classical music, which is very complex. And the choreographies that we perform are extraordinarily complex and lengthy. So the compositions can be anywhere from 5 to 25 minutes. And the dance technique itself includes very complex footwork set on top of the rhythmic patterns in the musical composition. Then, of course, Indian dance is known. Probably the two features that Indian classical dance is most known for are the eyes and the mudras, the hand movements, the very refined hand movements and the intricate facial expression. So Odissi utilizes those techniques which are in our classical Indian dance forms. They're rooted in text. They're codified in Sanskrit text. So the technique of Odissi, one unique feature of Odissi is that we highlight a position called Tripangi, which is an S curve through the center line. It's a very sensuous, sinuous posturing, and it's unique in Odissi. So a lot of people, when they first see Odissi, they feel, oh, it's so soft, it's so sensuous, it's so elegant and delicate. And yet at the same time, we have this footwork happening, which is very strong. And if you're doing the dance, it takes incredible effort. So you're kind of dripping sweat and you feel like you're running a marathon, stomping out these complex rhythm patterns, but the upper body is moving very flowing, very sinuous, and really highlighting curvature through the body. So it invokes both the masculine and the feminine in the body technique.
Beautiful. And that would be referred to the masculine form or aspect of the dance is called Tandava, and the feminine aspect or form of the dance is called Lasya.
That's how we refer to it in these days. In the texts which I referred to, in the Sanskrit texts such as Natya Shastra, previously in history, those aspects of the dance had different names throughout history, but currently we refer to sinuous, flowing, almost lyrical movement as lasya, and lasya referring to kind of the mythological origin of that is the Parvati, the consort of Shiva, being the one who reveals the teaching of Lasya, how to move flowing and graceful. Whereas Shiva, her husband, is the one who reveals Tandavo, the vigorous, furious, rhythmic dance form. So that's how we refer to the two movement qualities. It's interesting because in other dance forms, you might use different terminology, such as impact and continuous, or there's many different names we could give it, but the very terms Lasya and Tandavo kind of invoke the mythology and invoke the origin story, the divine origin story of the dance, giving it a little bit more imagination and creativity or personality in that essence in the dance.
Much that you said in the beginning, so I want to unpack just a little bit of it. And one is that, well, first, one of the reasons that I've really appreciated studying with you is that you do bring in the spiritual sentiment and bhakti, the act of devotion. I think it brings such a richness, and it's just a never-ending well. It gives meaning and depth to this art. It holds purpose, and so one of the things you talked about was it being a codified dance, and I would stretch to say it's a codified spiritual art that is bringing the form in the formless into form. And so we're talking about these mythological stories, Parvati and Shiva and these different aspects. Can you speak a little bit about that process?
Okay, so yeah, that is giving the formless form is something my Kata Guru Ranjana Srivastava has always said, and I always mention in my classroom because it's just a very succinct description of what we're doing. And since you mentioned that I, as a practitioner and as a teacher, highlight bhakti, again, not every practitioner of Odissi highlights that, although it is the content of many of our compositions and we invoke it through practices in the classroom and on the stage. But my personal connection to Odissi, I would say my personal ownership of it, because it became tangible at a certain point in my life where I was maybe 8 or 10 years invested in living in India, training in this dance, giving up everything that we could call a comfort to train endlessly in this dance. And at some point, obviously, I'm not from Orissa. I was born and raised in California. So there comes a point when you're practicing an art form. And I think even if I was from Orissa, there's a point where you ask, is this my dance? How is this my dance? Because I didn't make the choreographies, I didn't compose the steps, and I'm not from Orissa. It's not. I wasn't born into an Odissi family. So, to me, the answer came very clear to me that it is my dance because my spirit wants to say this. My spirit wants to sing this song. And when I started Odissi, I was not looking for a spiritual practice. I just saw the form, and it's so beautiful and such nice music and so beautiful and so charming and all the things that are very attractive. So what's fascinating about like the genius of classical Indian arts and dance in particular is it's so beautiful and so entertaining. Okay, that's the first level. Like, it's charming, it's interesting to watch. Then, oh, it's so complex. Oh, how rich the rhythmic layers are. Oh, how complex the rag it unfolds. How flexible the body is moving. So it's like the audience or even the practitioner travels from a very superficial level of just entertainment, pure entertainment, to intellectual stimulation. It's intellectually complex. And the more you learn about the music, the more you learn about the foot patterns or the movements, the more your intellect is completely engaged. And then once your intellect is completely fixed on the subject, then like there's this suggestion of the spirit, or let's say even the emotional body is invoked, because we have abhinaya and storytelling. So we have to invoke so much emotion, and our personal emotions are purified through this process of acting, of being, acting tragedy, acting valor, acting devotion. So progressively in my story, it went from just entertainment. It's a great way to spend my time. I like learning dance, and then deeper and deeper and deeper. And next thing you know, it just takes over mind, body, spirit, heart, every cell of your body.
It's fascinating. I didn't realize that you didn't come to the dance as a spiritual practice. And so hearing you share this is fascinating, but to really see that it's opened a whole universe that you didn't even know is possible. And you transmit it to us so beautifully. So thank you for coming before us and sharing what you have learned through that process. You mentioned so bhakti, right? There's a whole bhakti movement, and within the bhakti movement, there's actually something called a Shakti bhakti, and a Shakti bhakti is someone who is devoted to Shakti. And given that this is the Shakti shrine, I just wanted to tap a little bit into what Shakti is for you and how you experience that as an artist. How does that come through you? What is that embodiment of Shakti through the dance?
That's a great question. And it's an abstract question. So I feel like examples are the only way I can express it. Shakti, Shakti comes through, I would say, like my first initial response is Shakti is concentration. It is discipline. I think about how we train in Odissi is we are training. When you train in anything, it's not just Odissi, but when we enter the classroom, we prepare ourselves to concentrate, we prepare ourselves to do our best, and it's through discipline and concentration that we achieve mastery, or at least something close to mastery of the movements. So that is something I see when I teach. When I watch a student come in to the classroom who maybe hasn't had a lot of training in dance or in a movement form or in something, and I can see their mind very distracted. I see their body, they're not quite sure how to inhabit their body, a little bit unaware of the energies around them and how their energy is affecting those around them. And certainly that's how I was fumbling around in the classroom in the beginning, but it's something I noticed as a teacher, because what I see is a lot of Shakti just kind of dissipating, all this precious energy and life force and like purpose of life, just a little bit drifting around. And then if you see someone, I'm envisioning my guru. When I watch her practice, it's like a laser beam. I mean, there is no diversion, there is no leakage, it is absolutely channeled. And I think when someone can harness and channel Shakti, it becomes apparent and almost tangible for us to experience. So most of us go through life kind of, losing our energy, wasting our, and when somebody really learns how to harness concentration, it's as simple as that, is concentrating the mind, one pointed focus. And we have so many techniques to prepare our mind for that: breath techniques, body techniques, meditation techniques. But dance, Odissi dance in particular, because we are acknowledging the physical body, but also we are somehow acknowledging the subtle body and the heart, the spiritual heart, the soul, because we are talking about these kind of subjects in our dance, and we're doing movements which connect us into yogic practices. So I experience it in my day-to-day training, and I'm kind of checking myself for this leakage of energy, which is really simply a matter of concentration. But also another way that I experience Shakti is when I go to the stage. I think the experience of going to the stage, and specifically in Odissi, I feel like it's taking my meditation to the public. I sit and I do my sadhana, my meditation practice alone every day quietly. Nobody has anything to do with it. But then when I go to the stage, it's like a presentation of my meditation. So my ability to concentrate and control the energies that are flowing through me, and my ability to invoke energies and project that out with clarity. It's really working with something we could define as Shakti, which just is, yeah, it's an
Yeah.
enormous privilege and it's an enormous responsibility. And we just learned, like, oh, there's so much more we can do to harness that.
So there's a couple of things to comment on. One is, it seems that through the dance, as you expressed about your own journey, is that moving from the gross to the subtle. In the beginning, there's sort of the gross fixation and level of concentration, and then you move to the point of fixation on the divine. So you've mastered the technique, right? You've mastered the form, the kind of the container that holds the energy, and then your fixation is on the divine. This is the bhakti, this is the devotion. And I'm kind of smiling as you're talking about laser beam and your teacher, because I remember you once saying, I used to be a volcano who became a laser beam. And that kind of brings me to the next point of talking about your spiritual name as Durga Shakti. And you also were presenting that in the dance, we're harnessing this energy, it's a sense of containment. So on one hand, you're taking this wild energy, and you're refining it. And so we're moving into a refined essence of Shakti through the spiritual practice of Odissi. So do you want to share a little bit about this volcano that's turned into a laser beam, or perhaps just give a little story around your name, Durga Shakti?
You told that story for me, so I don't say it because that's my life story in a nutshell. Although I'm aiming to be a laser beam, still have a long way to go. Yeah, I think from there, the story goes that I met my spiritual guru, and how I got my name was, the moment I met him, I was not looking, just like Odissi, I was not looking for any kind of spiritual teacher, but here I am meeting this holy monk, and I walked into the room, and he said, "Why have you come?" And I said, I don't know how I said it. It just came out of my mouth. I said, I want to learn to worship Durga, and it just spoke through me. I never thought. I didn't think it. It just came out of my mouth. And I had been living in Orissa and India for several years, and as I was starting to get familiar with the stories and the aspects of Devi through Odissi, I was very, very attracted to Durga, and she just kept coming to me. So when I met my guru, I said, I want to learn to worship Durga, and he just kind of laughed at me, and he said, "You are Durga." And so from then on, my name has been Durga Parameshwari Shakti, and yeah, that's the story of my name. And I think the long story short is the volcano to the laser beam. What that means is just, who in their life has any idea what they're doing? And then some of us meet a guru in this lifetime who spells it out very clearly what we are doing in this. And it's a gift and a responsibility given to me in this lifetime, and through the sadhana, which the spiritual practice which he has given me, and the the teaching that he has given me, specifically embellishing these arts. He's immensely encouraging to go deeper and deeper into not only Odissi, but into all of the classical Indian arts, because it's absolute tapestry that is woven together of one vision, one goal in mind, but the intricacy is cultivated through things like martial arts and music and abhinaya. So that is the harnessing of the Shakti.
You definitely have the dedication, discipline, and perseverance that is required for these art forms. That is an energy that Durga beholds. I am reminded also of this item in Odissi. It's called an item, which is a choreography, and it's a Durga item, which is a beautiful, evocative piece. One who gets to witness this, especially to witness you and also your guru offering this piece, is yeah, it really brings you into an experience. And so we were talking about the different rasas and the different states that a dancer might move through, different expressions of the divine. And in this item, it offers a multitude of meditations. There's the worship and surrender to the feet of the goddess, and then suddenly you're becoming the goddess herself, and then you're the demon who challenges Durga. And in honor of Navaratri, Vijayadashami, which we are recording this podcast, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what that's like to move through these different states quite rapidly, actually, and to switch from different rasas or moods within the dance.
Yes, it's a good topic. So this is the aspect of Indian classical dance that we refer to as abhinaya, and most people would translate abhinaya as storytelling through gesture. But the definition that I really love is well organized emotion. And that's what it feels like to do an abhinaya piece, because it is, as you mentioned, it is fast. It is emotion organized on rhythm, on very complex and rapidly changing rhythms. So as you mentioned, in one moment, you are a devotee singing the praise of Divine Mother. And when you are surrendered at the feet of Divine Mother or at your beloved, the body is very soft, the breath is very released and open, there's moisture in the eyes, all of these sensations in the body. And then in the next moment, the demon, Mahishasura, who is actually an embodiment of tamas, but is like this tremendous force, one of the tremendous force. Actually, today is the day that she slays Mahishasura. So in this item in particular, Durga, you're moving from a very soft, I mean, just thinking about it physically as a physical technique, very soft and very surrendered, very open musculature, to very tense and aggressive and anticipatory, and all of this tension in the body and aggression. And then in the next moment, it's Durga fighting the demons. So I mean, in the technique of the dance, it's very interesting how you have to switch from softness to reaction and tension, and then how Durga is fighting the demon, but she is fighting, but she's not a demon. So in the beginning, you have to learn a choreography like that. It's very difficult to separate anger from a crazed state. To separate how Durga is angry, but she's also, when she slays the demon, it is an act of compassion because she gives liberation through that act. So also just psychologically, when you're portraying these different rasas, to move, rasa is something a little bit deeper than emotion, but for the sake of a short conversation, we'll just call it emotion. To move from one emotion to the next, it does require organization and incredible practice. So years of kind of preparing yourself to switch from a surrendered state to a state of aggression or a state of compassion. So this choreography, specifically Durga, is, of course, it's one of my favorite. I remember when I first saw my guru perform it, I have rarely witnessed a work of art that could give justice to what I feel Durga is. I mean, very rarely. There's two images, and then this choreography, and maybe a song I can think of. When you meditate so intimately on your mother, on Durga, it's like that recognition was immediate when I saw the choreography. So Guru Kelucharan Mohapatra, the great father of our lineage of Odissi, I mean, what was going through his mind? What was his life experience to give him that vision? Because the choreography starts recounting her softness and her beauty and just how charming and sensuous. Actually, it's Devi and Shringara Rasa, very intimate, very sensuous. And then, of course, Devi as Mahishasura Mardini, as the fierce goddess who slays demons. So it is my favorite. It is a very precious choreography to me because my experience, the experience of a devotee having the opportunity to do an abhinaya, to practice abhinaya, and not just for the stage, but the practice of it too. It is, it's an incredible gift because it's a physical act. You get to physically act out the internal struggles. Mm-hmm. So when we sit to meditate, like all of this internal work is going on, very, very subtle work is happening, almost so abstract that we're not able to perceive it. But when we manifest it through the body, it just becomes so significant of the blockages that we find in the flow of our movement when we're trying to express an emotion or a concept. It's such a profound experience to be able to act it out, and to be able to act as a deity, I think has been transformational for me because it's not an outside concept. It's not like a Puranic story I heard one day. It's such a cute story, how this kind of mythological stories are recounted in, like you hear them like a bedtime story so often in India. But to be able to act it, to physically try to portray and embody Devi or a devotee or a demon, you have to get in touch with those qualities within yourself on a daily basis and refine and work and mold with it, which is incredible.
Beautiful. Well, as someone who holds the constitution or the nature of Durga, we could say, these other aspects, like for example, Radha, like moving from more of Veera Rasa, which is this heroic kind of warrior act, to more of the feminine, kind of shy, sweet, sensual that one might feel in Radha. So So, what are some of the ways in which you cultivate that or come into that state?
Okay, so I know that you've heard all my stories. I know that's why you're bringing up Radha, but to kind of let everyone in on why probably you're bringing up Radha is that I always talk about in my process of being entering into Odissi. My process has been coming as a young, rebellious 20-year-old from California, moving to India, and kind of learning Odissi without a lot of English. And nobody really spoke much English. And I just kind of followed along and figured things out as I went, very, very slowly and very painfully. But in the beginning, the thing that really baffled me about moving to India, I mean, living in India and living under the care of a guru at 20 years old, I was used to being wildly independent, fierce, feminist, all the qualities that a good California girl at 20 years old should have, to a very traditional setting in Orissa and having a lot of chaperone and like a lot of input about how I had to dress and how I have to behave. And the thing that really confused me in the beginning of my process with Odissi is why women are portrayed the way they were. And so I was seeing in Odissi, because Odissi is linked to the Jagannath temple. Jagannath, for a Vaishnav, is an aspect of Krishna. And so a lot of the content of the Abhinayas in Odissi is from the Gita Govind, the romantic pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And according to the aesthetic philosophy and the beliefs, love has two parts, and that is union and separation. And separation is celebrated through, well, think about it, across all cultures, every good love song has a little bit of crying in it, right? So a lot of the poetry that is acted out in Odissi is kind of Radha pouting and waiting for Krishna. And I remember telling my guru in the beginning, I'm not going to do Radha. I'll do an Abhinaya of Shiva or Durga, but I'm not gonna portray Radha waiting for Krishna while he's playing with the other gopis. And of course, in the beginning, and many people view Krishna as simply a mythological character, a story, and even you can read a lot of kind of feminist dialogue on Indian classical dance and how women are portrayed. But finally, for the bhakta, for the devotee, Radha and Krishna represent the Lord and the devotee, and the great devotee, the purest love. Radha is the greatest devotee. So that purest love that we could ever attain, that purest devotion we could ever attain would be like Radha. And it's just simply in the beginning, that philosophical depth was hidden to me, and I saw a woman being portrayed as weak. And it's so interesting because it wasn't just Radha, it was so many things that I saw with my Western American conditioning. What is power? What does power? I grew up in the era of the power suit. Women going to the work. My mom was a lawyer. She wore a power suit, and we have these symbols in the culture that I grew up in of what a powerful woman or what a woman should look like, and it's so different in a traditional context in Orissa. It really took me a long time to understand the power and the balance in that softness and that I want to say health, because that let's just look at Radha as an example. Radha as a character is extremely healthy. Like, let's just think of it in a very tangible, material way. Is she is completely surrendered, and she is unconcerned with herself. She is only concerned with Krishna, with the Lord. As a true devotee, she has attained the highest, above any sadhu, above any guru, above any gopi, any aspirant. So she has attained a complete harmony, a complete balance, which is very powerful. So there's so many aspects to the divine and to the feminine, but certainly in the beginning I could relate to the warrior goddess aspect of Durga, but now the layers reveal themselves of the many different moods of the divine.
Thank you for that in-depth explanation, and truly you do embody what I would call a supple strength and a soft stamina, and really, the embodiment of these two polarities, these two aspects of the masculine and the feminine. So on that note, I feel called to conclude, and I am wondering if there is any gem that you want to offer. You've offered many gems, but if there's any one last form of inspiration that you would like to share, or perhaps we could sign off by you offering the Durga Shloka in honor of Vijayadashami.
I would be happy to. Thank you for having me, and I wish you luck with this endeavor. It's a beautiful intention.
Thank you.
Om Sarvamangalam Mangalye Shive Savat Sadike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Durge Durge Rakshani Swaha Om Namaschandikaye Sharanagatarinath Paritrana Parayani Sarvasyati Haridevi Narayani Namostute Jnanenamapi chitansi devi bhagavati hi sa baladakrsha mohaya mahamaya prayachati. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.